It is.
I uploaded an unlisted video. It was about a sick fish asking for help. And it made me look at the ratings for last week's episode, which were really bad. And I was like, what happened there? I didn't walk away thinking it was bad. And the comments, we had an interruption problem. I think our guest had a tech issue. So he couldn't tell when we were talking, and he kept talking over us. But the comments blamed us entirely. They were like, you keep interrupting your guests. I'm like, what, with the middle of my sentence? Really? That's not how I remember it. And I would like go out of my way to silence myself as soon as he interrupted me. And it was a challenge, but the comments were not kind to us.
And he would take over a conversation and go and go and go and go. And you couldn't interrupt him because he wouldn't hear your interjection for like 4 seconds. So then there'd be the back and forth nonsense. That was all him.
So I read those and I was like, all right. I need to stop. I think that they're actually incorrect this time, but I don't know. I want to be like, give me a timestamp. Show me the time that I did the interrupting, because I that's not how I remember it, but I can be wrong.
Yeah, it does suck to get criticized and be like, damn, they're not only right, they're entirely right.
Yeah, I know that happens too. That happens too.
Yeah. Because it's like there's so much that goes into the way people perceive things, and perception is not reality. So it's like I don't know. It's really, I don't know. It's very impersonal.
Yeah.
Liars, sycophants.
All the mean comments. Zach, delete all the mean comments on this one.
Anything with a negative connotation.
Get rid of all of them that aren't overwhelmingly nice.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 7 comments.
Fellatio.
There's 7 comments on the video.
There's 7 comments left. Yeah, they didn't like the show, and I think I thought our guest was a really good storyteller, but the technical difficulty I think was the root of the conversational issues.
Yeah, it was a tech thing for sure. Yeah.
Old-timey sailor.
We should probably just cut Christopher there.
Yeah,
he doesn't even understand that it's his end.
I think he's trying to reset his router.
He's like, you got something's wrong over there. It's all glitchy.
I had a paramotor instructor say this about me. He's like, Woody, you're the kind of guy that when you're driving down the highway and on the radio they warn, careful, there's a crazy person going the wrong way. You're like, one crazy person, they're all going the wrong way. That reminded me of Christopher being like, everyone's internet's bad, but mine. Weird.
I mean, if we were in a survival situation and I had a bobby pin, I'm almost positive I can open handcuffs with a bobby pin for sure.
Yeah, but if you pop out the little binder clips, the little black ones that they use,
you got to stop interrupting me, man.
Together with, if you pop
Christopher.
the little handle out of that, it'll kind of work.
Christopher, I think you're lagging behind a little bit, and it's kind of ruining the show because you talk over us, and we kind of get bowled over by you.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
I think it's a tech issue. I think you're on, because I noticed it earlier in the show. I haven't said anything, and I think he just doesn't know that we're talking.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Well, sorry about that. Yeah, you guys sound like Stephen Hawking on an auto-tuner sometimes.
Yeah, that's on your end. It's your internet bandwidth is the.
Yeah, I'm kind of out in the sticks out here, so I don't have the fastest internet. Well, apologies for the talking over. I don't mean to do that.
It's all good.
We need to do like hand signals, or we need like passing the conch in Lord of the Flies or something.
Yeah, we can wrap it up. It's been a wonderful show.
Yeah.
I've you guys are fun to hang out with.
Yeah,
you
you as well.
about
Glad
Chris
your
before
internet
you
got
go?
cleared up.
Well, and again, sorry for whatever the audio was, or I was talking over people. I was just trying to wing it.
Sorry if I was rude.
No, not at all. But I did not mean to be rude myself. But no, I've always enjoyed being on here. I mean, I'm a good have a plan person anyway. But like having no idea what we're going to talk about, like it's just so fun to just watch it evolve with y'all. And y'all are all just informed, smart people. You got your own opinions, and things just evolve. Like it's always fun to be on here. It's just cool to see what comes up.
Dude, I'm looking at the comments on that PKA right now. The top one, well, obviously the top one is Larry saying, "Thank you guys so much for having me. Having a great time." Nice of him. The next one is, "I think his prison sentence was the last sentence that Larry finished." This entire 600 upvotes on that. This entire episode is like asking what a producer does. Larry has immunity to Woody's shush ability. He just Kyle,
These comments are pretty good.
Kyle, quote, yes, Larry, but how do we rob the jewelry store, Myers?
You can see I'm trying so hard. Like I felt like
I love it when Kyle gets frustrated.
Yeah, because like I can feel when like it's not good going to be good to listen to. I'm like, man, if I were listening to this, I would be ready. I'd be like fast forwarding right now, and I hate that. I want to do a good job. I want it to be funny, and I want him to answer my fucking question. like you're a bank robber, so tell me how to rob a bank or jewelry store robber. That's what he'd say. He'd be like, actually, yeah, I rob jewelry stores. You don't even know what you're talking about. And it's like, dude, you still haven't told me how to rob that store. I could make it up better than you can tell it, dude. Yeah. I can make it up better than you can tell it. I could make up how I used to make believe rob jewelry stores, and it'd be so much better than your. God, I think he might have a neurological thing going on, or he's just a storyteller. Either way, I apologize for him. Because when you watch his videos, he's got it together. It's almost like there's somebody with cue cards behind him. No, on track. I bet there's like a railroad track drawn on the pasteboard, so he knows to stay on track, and he's got little cars for his topics.
I mean, as it went on, it went from frustrating to like I was like enjoying watching you get like frustrated with him.
Well, no, I was just going to ask you guys, like, how, because you guys don't seem to have gone down the audience capture route. Like, you seem to have, like, I feel like I'm talking to the same person I talked to like 8 years ago. Like, how have you guys avoided the trappings of that? Do you just not, I'm going to guess that you don't look at like the comments or your replies very often.
Very rarely do I look at any comments.
The only way I interact with fans is if they, and it's, is if they join our Patreon and they give us $50 a month. And then they join our Discord, and then I literally game with them all night and like shoot the shit with them. And the group of guys in there are awesome. I'll sort of lean on them for like if they thought a show was good or not. And sycophants that they are, they love everyone. They love everyone. They've never had a complaint, and they better not, because I'll ban them. They know I will. I'm liberal with the ban hammer. No, like, but I really, it's the opposite though. Like I feel like they'll be like, what happened there? And I'm like, look, we didn't book that guy. I don't know who booked that guy.
We didn't know he was going to have a fried brain from the mushrooms. We didn't know.
Yeah.
We were just starting to talk about last week's PKA.
It's awesome.
It was awesome.
Taylor,
always the best episode ever.
Perhaps.
That everybody loved it.
Taylor was saying right before we pressed record, he was like, I finished the show and I thought, Taylor, you're doing good. That was a good performance by you.
Yeah, and it's so funny when that happens too, because more often than not, if I do have a thought about the show afterward, it's like thinking of missed opportunities or like shit that you botched or fumbled over your words on. And so like to finish one and be like, that feels like it was a pretty good one. And then it's just the least favorite one in ever. Ever.
We had a 90% dislike ratio at one point. I think it's gone up since then, but I don't know what it is. And I was like, you've made 3,000 videos. I'm not sure you've ever had this bad a dislike ratio. That's a lot of videos to break new ground with.
So they're mad because I didn't do the edible on last week's show. Is that it?
Yes.
I
want to talk about that a little bit. So I sort of fouled up. In my faulty memory, I thought we at least talked about it or explained it. And it may have been pre-show, or you think it was pre-show? Because
I know for a fact it was, because we talked to Blame Truth about it. Sure. Here's what happened was, believe it or not, I'm really fucking high over here. And like planning things isn't going to plan very well. But no, we like discussed this before the thing. I was like, yeah, I don't have the edibles yet. I'm gonna have to do it next week, which is this week's PKA. And my memory of that was that it was part of the show. So like as we progressed through the show, I was kind of like, yeah, we covered that thing. And we had also talked about, being out here and just smoking and having a good time and the whole vacation and everything. So
now, why couldn't you take 10 100s? Because it's something about a medical card, and I don't know.
Because then I would be 1/10 of the way there. Did you say 10 100s?
Yeah.
You can't get 100s.
I think you can only get 100s if like you have a medical card, but recreational users have it capped at like 10s or something like that. Is that right?
So you would need to take 100 tens.
Yes. So
that would be so funny.
So
Twitch
obviously,
chat doesn't seem to know that.
so obviously, that's a bit of a slow up too. Got to make sure that we can get an edible powerful enough for me, which I think we have figured out how to do.
Well, you have by tomorrow or so to get it.
Yeah, by Thursday. Yeah. We'll be good.
You're making me nervous, Kyle. I want this delivered.
I guess I'll take it like 2 hours into the show. That way I'm awake for 2 hours and then slowly going to sleep for 2 hours.
I mean, if you take 1,000, if you take a gram, you might throw up.
I will throw up. Yeah.
You'll probably vomit. That's not a pleasant amount to have.
I'm underestimating the severity of this dose.
It's a ridiculous amount to take. Like, it's absurd. 100 gets you fucked beyond it. Way too much. 100 is for most people,
and 1,000 is more than that.
As soon
10
as
times as much.
Yeah, there's no telling exactly how much more.
It's like someone being like, well, I mean, it's like a shot of vodka, right? And it's like, yeah, but Kyle promised he would do 30 of them, and so that's like that big bottle at Costco, So he's gonna be vomiting.
No, it'll be fun. We're gonna go to a scary place. Gonna get scared, as they say. I haven't really done any edibles since I've been here. I took about 20 milligrams about an hour ago, just to see how that feels. And it's not that strong. I mean, I'm high, but 20 doesn't really register that much on like the crazy scale. As soon as Dirty got here, he ate 100.
I'm just stuck on, hey, I did a 20, and it's not that big a deal. So I'm sure 1,000's fine. Like, what can 980 more be?
Well, there is a difference, right? Because like, if I was really feeling 20, like God, 1,000's awfully scary. I think there's a saturation issue that comes into play at some point. It's like, how much can your body even like utilize?
Yeah, or 1,000 and 10,000 are the same, probably.
I believe that. I believe.
You know what? I have had that theory about
calories,
and I'm not sure it's true, but I just feel like if I eat, say, a 4,000 calorie day, that gets me fat. If I eat 40,000 calories, I'm not sure I keep 10 times as many.
No, there's no way. There's no way we're that like efficient.
I like that guess.
Did you have somebody come on that was tripping balls?
Yeah, he wasn't at the time, but he had some.
We had a guest.
Or he probably was. I'm so naive.
So this guy touted himself as some sort of a shaman per se, and basically his story was that he had this awful experience where his wife, who was pregnant with his unborn child, died in a car accident that he caused, and it ruined him to the extent where he sought out psychedelics, more and more potent doses of them to sort of get over that trauma. And my take is that while doing that, he fried his brain. And so then he's got this new wife, and he told us that he's like, so at this point in my life, my wife was saying, I'm going to murder the children. I'm going to take the gun. I have the gun, and I'm going to murder the children. So then I went on one of my retreats to the Dominican Republic and did mushrooms with some guys. And when we got back, I talked to her, and I had a whole new frame of mind. I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically that. And so I'm like, I'm doing this when I'm like, whoa, your wife said she was going to murder the children, and she had the means, which means she's thought about this a good bit, went and gotten the gun. She has the gun, and you went to another country to do drugs. I love drugs, and travel's fun, and I hate kids. But my take is that you're a piece of shit, dude. How do you leave your kids behind with a murderer who's telling, like, are you insane? I didn't go that hard.
You just went there?
I went a little bit softer than that, and it devolved quickly. I may have been rude to him. I smoke every show, and I don't really remember these things too well. I enjoyed it. But I think I was pretty mean to him, and he deserved it.
One in every 30, 50 guests, Kyle will decide, I've had enough of this guy. I'm not interested in his return, so I'm going to lay it down.
Sometimes they'll just be fucking liars. Like there's one guy, look, I hate a fake badass. I'm not a badass. I don't want to get in a fight. I'm not good at it. I wouldn't be good at it if I tried. I'm not going to pretend like I will be or
aren't you still ripped as fuck, or did that go away?
I beat the shit out of you, bro. I'd smoke you. See? Now you see like
my arm up. You can't. I'll just keep you back. I got the long arms. So
He's got reach.
I'd
Yeah.
snap
Yeah.
those in half with my jiu-jitsu training.
Well, boxing
Please.
violence.
You know how much
You'll be
UFC I watch?
slapping you.
I'm a real tough guy. I watch the UFC. I'm not. There are guys who are like what I'm like pretending to be, right? There are those douchebags.
Yeah.
yeah.
But we had a guy on who was like I can't remember what kind of badassery he was claiming he'd done, but he was like, yeah, my stepdad stabbed me, and I was like, oh, you stabbed me. And I ran away off into the woods and sewed it up myself. And I think I just went, no, you didn't. It was like that. It was like in Billy Madison when he's like, me and her got it on, and Adam Sandler's like, no, you didn't. Yeah, but this guy I knew, him and her did the thing. He's like, no, they didn't. Yeah, but you can imagine what it'd be like if they did.
That's a solid 30-year reference right there.
Yeah.
Or what, 25-year reference? Yeah.
8% of our audience, according to my made-up statistics, got that one.
I've seen that movie.
It's a great movie. So he's claiming that he got stabbed and that he stitched himself. And I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Show me the scar. Show me, bro. Show me where you got stabbed with a kitchen knife and pulled it out of your body and sewed it up yourself, because you fucking didn't. You fucking didn't.
Yeah. And that was absurd. But yeah, the mushroom one that's happened, Kyle will do that from time to time. But as far as like the audience retainer or whatever that was called, audience training,
Audience capture. Yeah.
Like it was probably 5-6 years ago now, and it was actually a Sam Hyde clip that I saw that like changed my perspective on it, because I used to like read comments a lot more, forums, all that, and I saw a video from him that was like him talking about that, and obviously he's a big figure, a lot of people talking about him, and he was like, everyone knows how negative it is and bad for your psyche to like read bad things about yourself online if you're a content guy. Like that's negative. But he also made the point of like, it's also almost as sinister and bad to read positive things about yourself. Like the whole idea of like sitting there reading about yourself is going to breed in you like a sort of unintended narcissism in one way or the other that is going to change you as a person.
And by the same rationale, by the same rationale that you would say, don't read that negative stuff. They don't know you. Don't read that positive stuff. They don't know
exactly.
you.
Yeah.
They don't know how full of shit you were when you said that thing, or that you were being charitable just because you felt like you had to, or like they don't know the pressures that you're under, or like or any of that stuff.
Well,
so like
it's like it's like a house of cards. So like I heavily identify with that. Like early on in my like online career, dude, I was showered with fucking attention and praise nonstop, and I fucking bought into it, you know. And I'm like reading every comment, and it really didn't take long for me to realize like this is not like a foundation. Like your foundation needs to be like the relationships that you have with people in your life.
You could have done live event shows. Like chats with Hutch, show up and pay $10 at this club in LA tonight, and people would have shown up. Like
and it was like super intoxicating in the beginning, but it really was like a year, 2 years where it was like it just fell apart. Like I need more than that, and so I started. You know, that's when I kind of disappeared.
Did it turn negative on you, Hutch? Like, is that how you remember it?
It just wasn't the like I remember getting like really depressed towards the end of Machinima, and it just wasn't. It was no longer work. It was like a drug that stopped working. It was like, I was in a position where I was like, okay, well, you know, I have this hosting gig and I still have this like good job. And now they're paying me a lot better, but I'm just like miserable. And it just that became like an Inception idea where it just kind of went down from there. And so I kind of had to disconnect for like 6 months, and you know, and it's
That's
like
good.
it's like an ebb and flow. Like, so like I came back and then I did some crazy shit, like got engaged after like a week of reconnecting with someone.
How'd that go?
So not great. Not great. I would not recommend it personally.
Good friend of the show just broke up with his fiance. Everybody give him a little, let's go, Bobbity. Let's go. Let's go.
He broke up with his fiance.
When a dude all of us, please continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. You go ahead.
When a dude starts talking about his fiance, and you can tell it's his first time saying that word, and it's sickening. I fucking get grossed out hearing that shit. And I start plotting. I'm like, all right, we got to get this guy into a game.
Yeah.
So I got him to Tarkov. Now he's away from her. All right. A little rift has been created by all right. Yep. So now I got him in Tarkov. He's addicted to it. He's playing like 8-10 hours a day. Who's he not talking to? the fiance. All of a sudden, it's the girlfriend. And then, we got to play some more Tarkov, man. Can you get on tonight? Yeah, I guess I can. Oh, now it's the ex-girlfriend. Now he's moving back across the country to the Eastern Seaboard. Let's
and
go.
Now it's the
Florida
plaintiff.
boy.
Yeah.
Well, you're not playing 9 hours of Tarkov a day if your relationship is going well. So
right.
I'm sure you were the catalyst, but there was probably some fuck. Anyways, I've been with my fiance for 9 years now, so like we're good.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, but I've never heard you say that word before, so I know that it is good.
We've been engaged for like 3 years. We're not really like
You're not doing the speed run thing here.
No. The opposite. So like my relationship is super grounded now. Like my life is pretty peaceful. But for a while there, I was like subconsciously seeking out chaos. Like I would just go through these cycles where I would get bored, I would get restless, and then there was just something about that cycle of dysfunction and chaos that I was attracted to. And then it wasn't until I don't know if I told you guys this, but I got a bipolar diagnosis last year. And all of a sudden, everything made sense. I was like, oh.
So what's bipolar? Can you explain that to me in the audience? I've heard it before, but I don't feel like I really know.
Well, there's like a pop media sort of like idea of what bipolar is, which is just rapidly cycling between euphoria and mania and depression, which that is a thing. It's just very rare. They call it rapid cycling bipolar, or maybe type 3, I think. But type 2 is what I have, and it's mostly on the low side. So you spend most of the time in the depression, but then you have these periods of what they call hypomania instead of mania. So full on mania is like you stay up for 3, 4, 5 days at a time. You start hallucinating. Like lots of times there's delusions of grandeur. They literally think they're Jesus Christ. And it wasn't that for me.
I only date women who have bipolar.
Are you sure it's not borderline?
Yeah, no BPD, disorder? Kyle. Come on, they're the ones who worship.
Well, I'm not allowed to talk to her doctors anymore. They're court order, but so I'm not quite sure. But my experience has always been that, man, it was almost like split personalities. Like there are two versions of those people when it's extreme, and one of them is happy-go-lucky, and the other is like the world's tumbling down at the slightest thing. Or it could be angry. Like one could be very disagreeable and hard. Sometimes it could be very disagreeable and hard to get along with. Other times, just the opposite. And it'd be like, man, are you? I think a lot of people would just be like, yeah, he's having a bad day. That's just how he is. It's like, no, he's not having a bad day. He's having a fucking episode.
He's unmedicated.
He's unmedicated, and he has shifted all the way to the right. And he's being very disagreeable because he's a different person with different chemistry in his brain right now than he normally is.
Yeah. You take anything for it, Hutch?
I do, yeah. I got clean, so I stopped drinking and smoking weed. And then I got on medication, and dude, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't give anybody like medication advice. This is my little disclaimer there, but I got on a medication, and basically it started working for me like right away. The number one thing that it helped me do is get 8 hours of sleep every night. So like I was really struggling with sleep. So like sometimes I would only get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, and you do that for months, and it's really unhealthy. Yeah. So I take the medication that I take. It's like an hour and a half later, I'm fighting to keep my eyes open, so I can manually regulate my sleep, and it just keeps me at a baseline. And it's been huge for me. Like they used to prescribe me antidepressants, SSRIs, before they had a diagnosis, but that's not typically what you do with bipolar, because you can actually induce mania with SSRIs with the way that serotonin works in our brains. So I had really negative experiences with like Paxil and Prozac, and but this medication that I'm on now, I pretty much experienced significant relief like right away. The name of the drug is what's it called? Seroquel. It's I think it's
letter an S.
Seroquel, yeah. It's SEROQUEUEL. But obviously it's not going to work for everybody. If you're listening to this and you're going through a rough time, I'm not saying like, hey, you should go.
Obviously, ask your doctor about it. Don't just get.
It makes birth control less effective. Be careful.
I'm not on birth control. So.
Were there any negative effects you dealt with, like initially or at all, or pretty?
It makes you a little groggy in the morning. So sometimes like I get up really early sometimes because I'll cover like congressional hearings and it's like DC time. So I got to wake up at like 5. And so sometimes those mornings are a little rough because it's like hard to.
Yeah. You're still groggy.
So that's like the big one. So like it'll make you groggy in the morning, but it stimulates your appetite. So I was like really slender for a really long time. I had a problem with appetite, and this makes me eat like tons of calories. And so I'm at a pretty healthy weight, and it totally changed my whole life. And like now I'm much more careful about how tying it back to what we were talking about before. I'm just much more careful about like how I do online stuff. Like some days I have bad days and I'm on Twitter just way too long. But like I keep my phone in this room now. So like when I lay down to go to bed at night, it's like not the first thing I do when I wake up is grab my phone and start scrolling. And so it's like a combination of things. It's like lifestyle changes and then diet and then medication.
Gotta keep my phone close. I gotta hear those Amber alerts.
Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that this conflict and the discourse around it like ended the H3 Hassan?
I really don't know anything about those guys.
You're not plugged into them at all.
Not trying to stay away from that sort of thing.
What happened? Were they friends and now they're not, or is the
opposite? They did a podcast together for I want to say like 2 years. It's called The Leftovers, and it was a really interesting cultural kind of like online cultural moment to watch that friendship sort of disintegrate over time, because it started to fray during like a conversation about like capitalism versus communism stuff. And what had happened was like H3 had, whether intentionally or unintentionally, cultivated through his partnership with Hassan, cultivated like a really left-wing audience, like a hammer and sickle, like we need to like destroy capital kind of like audience. And they started to like have this like disagreement where Ethan was like willing to say, you know, there's plenty of flaws with capitalism. There's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of poverty, you know, but I'm just not with you with the whole like Chinese kind of stuff, like, or like full on hammer and sickle stuff. And then like a few months later, it culminated this fracture of their friendship with the Palestinian Israeli conflict, because Ethan is a dual citizen. Like he has citizenship in Israel. He has family in Israel.
His
and so
girl is Israeli, right? Or is also as dual. Yeah.
And so a lot of Ethan's audience were, I mean, some of them were just full on like
actually
celebrating October 7th, you know, like and so like Ethan was he was like saying like, look, I'm willing to tell you like what the Israelis have been doing to Palestinians for decades is wrong, and fuck Netanyahu and fuck the Likud party and fuck, you know, the Israeli Palestinian the treatment of Palestinians, but Hamas, like what they did is fucking not good. And then like a bunch of the audience were calling him like a racist, genocidal, apartheid supporter. And dude,
they call us that all the time. They don't mean it.
That just means hello in online talk.
Yeah, that's just howdy.
That's how they think.
It was an interesting kind of like, it was an interesting moment because it's just like,
for him to realize that's that's pretty awkward.
So there was a big schism in both of their audiences.
They don't do the podcast anymore, and it was just too much. Like there was like
free and open discussion had a limit for them. Yeah,
and that was a pretty big podcast, you know. So to like walk away from that was like pretty significant.
You think the audience divided them mostly?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the conflict and the audience. There's this thing called audience capture. Are you guys familiar with the concept of audience capture? It's like, so if you're like an influencer person and you cover politics or you cover cultural stuff, and you end up cultivating an audience over time, like you guys have cultivated kind of like a slightly more right-wing audience, I would say, right? And but like what happens with a lot of creators is they start to notice like, oh, well, I'll get, you know, you either consciously or unconsciously know, like I'm going to get more engagement if I frame certain things this way or that way. And so there ends up being this sort of like extremism pipeline that happens, and then it gets to a point where the creator, they're not really being authentic with their thoughts. They're relaying what they think their audience is going to want to hear. So you know,
Zach phrased it really well. Let me read it because it's interesting. Audience capture is a self-reinforcing feedback loop that involves telling one's audience what they want to hear and getting rewarded for it.
Yeah, and then they have to go further and further. So they're like, oh, when I'm talking about how awesome Stalin was, I get lots of likes and comments.
Well, see, it's people easy to get around that, comrade. Though. We just always, one of us has to disagree, so that we're always on both sides. We literally are. It's very rarely that all
Typically,
three of us are like full. And
if we all agree, someone will jump on the other side.
Yeah,
and then there'll be, if we all
see
agree, there's at least a dissenting opinion from somebody. They're like, look, all right, I'll co-sign that. Yeah, but here's the thing about that.
You need
you'll have a little. You need disagreement.
Yeah, it's
not so much
interesting to listen.
politics, but here's where I think our show does it a lot in like the meanness, right? So this is a show where we laugh at people fighting cars and think it's hilarious at that mismatch. And then the audience turns that same spirit on us, and it's like, well, don't be surprised, fucknard.
Yeah, if we got hit in a parking lot, they would have no sympathy.
Exactly.
But that's because they're dumb. Because I don't think it's funny when people get hit by cars. I think it's funny when fat black women get mad at each other. One of them gets behind the wheel of her Intrepid, and the other one still continues to show the same amount of gusto in the physical altercation, despite the fact that said Intrepid is 4,200 pounds of killing machine.
Those women are like 0-31 against the Intrepid in all the videos Kyle sent me. Huge losing streak. I don't think they're going to turn the franchise around. The Intrepid is,
I have seen so many ladies get ran down by Chrysler 300s and it still tickles me to death. I love it. But I don't want to see just some poor pedestrian get hit. Like that thing in Nice, France, when that terrorist attack and people got ran over. That's not funny. That's horrific. But if you're like, you're not going to talk to me that way, what you going to do? Run me. And they're like,
right. Oh, did you get in your car? Well, I took off my high heel shoe. Let's go.
That's an actual video.
I'm familiar with this genre.
Oh, you haven't seen this? No. Basically, two people are in a conflict. Someone gets in a car, and the other person, rather than like running or taking cover behind a light pole, is like, I'm not afraid of your car. And I have a theory, like Kyle mentioned the race thing, but I think it's the sex thing. I think that sometimes women feel like they're not going to get hit because it doesn't happen to them very much. You know, the punch in the mouth is a very extreme, uncommon route to take for girls.
Yeah.
So I
get hit in the mouth in 10 minutes. I go out there and say the wrong shit. I promise you. I go to Circle K, it'll go down.
It could happen with your friend. Like if you mouth off the Scott enough, then, you know, it might go that way. I don't know.
Say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Man, your dog's
a little bit.
Shift is a super powerful tool.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that focus on the negative thing, I used to do that. I'm much better now. But there was a time, say my YouTube comments were 95% positive. Well, I'm deaf to those, right? The 5% that told me what I did wrong.
Sycophants.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your word.
Sycophants.
Sycophants. Yeah, no, you're right. And then the 5% that had something negative to say, those
liars.
That I'm like, they're truth tellers. They're the ones who see me.
Sycophants, liars. Dude, I always, whenever people shit on me, I always read it and like try to find parts, try to be objective and like find parts that are like valid. Like there's a Reddit called YouTube Drama. And sometimes my content is adjacent to that Reddit and they'll talk shit about me. They hate me. And I'll read it. And I'm like, man, some of this stuff is like very valid. Like this makes sense. I get it. And I'm not going to change, obviously, but like it does, you know, I get it though. Like I completely understand. It's, you know, I don't know. I've got a lot of respect for shitting on myself.
I just happened to
I think it's a good tool.
It is.
I uploaded an unlisted video. It was about a sick fish asking for help. And it made me look at the ratings for last week's episode, which were really bad.
Speaking of, you were talking about like the neurotic thinking, Caleb, you'd have as a young person, teens. Like I remember being so consumed with fear over like my loved ones dying and going to hell at the age of like 6, 7, 8, like all the way up to like 12, that it would like sleepless nights as like an 11-year-old being like, my grandparents are going to die and there will be no way for me to know if they're burning for all eternity or if they're not. And I would just walk around day to day and be like, Taylor, did you do your reading homework? And I'm like, you're going to die and you're going to go to hell. Maybe. What if I
learning about life? Yeah.
I don't want to die and go to hell.
Yeah.
I hope I make it to heaven. Is there a way to know? Yeah. That was so panic inducing for so long. My mom took me to a kid therapist when I was like 11 or 12 for that. And it was so unhelpful because he was like like even looking back, like it was a Christian therapist, but like frankly, even like a normal Christian would have been like, you just cut it out. Like, stop worrying about like going all the time. Like that's ridiculous. Like it's what a normal person would do. But I remember specifically sitting in that office and he's like, what's the issue? My mom's in there too. And I'm like, I can't stop obsessing over how everyone is going to die around me and either go to hell and burn for all eternity or not. And there's no way for me to know after they die what's going to happen. He was like looking at his paper and he's like, that's a very real fear. And that's why
it's important to worship him every day.
It was stressful. That guy stressed me out for like a whole nother year after that.
Taking you to me. I'd have been like, none of this shit's real, bro. They're going to get eaten by worms, and that's the end of their existence.
That wouldn't have helped.
I'm here to help.
No, it's so easy to fix that when you say, hey, son, what did they tell you about God? That he's all good, right? And he sees everything, and he knows everything? Now let me ask you so. Is your grandmother a good person? Yeah. Well, the best. She's got nothing to worry about then, does she? Because he sees all that. If you think that you see how good she is, just imagine how much he loves her.
You would have helped
1,000 times more than you.
A pediatric Christian therapist.
Not the worm thing?
And then when I was...
no, not the worm thing. He's 11, Woody. He's 11. He can't handle the truth yet.
That would be all. Yeah, they put me on SSRIs for like a 6-7 month period.
When you were a child?
Remember what it was called?
Yeah, when I was a kid. I think it made me into a weirdo. Like, because your
that's what did it.
That's what it is. It wasn't me. It wasn't intrinsic. And they put me on it. And it was during 5th grade. How old are you in 5th grade? 11?
Yeah.
Like around there. So like I was on it for like most of that 5th grade school year. I have no memories. I have no distinct memories of 5th grade. Like
that's awesome.
Kindergarten through 4th grade, 6th grade through 12th grade. I can think if I just think for a second, like what's a 3rd grade memory? I can like close my eyes, think, I can picture what seat I was at, like where my teacher was, like something that happened with a friend. But 5th grade, it's blank. It was awful.
I would love to lose 5th grade. That was the year they bullied me for fixing my hair, walking pigeon-toed, and blinking too much. Yeah, that was a terrible year.
You know what I do remember from 5th grade? 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was my.
They put you on SSRIs.
Yeah,
it was 9th grade for me. It was a sad day though. It was a sad day. Yeah, really. Everybody was bummed out. We didn't leave school either. We just had to sit through it.
I mean, it happened so early in the Midwest that like it was basically an off day. Like get to school, 30 minutes of time. 9/11, go home.
I think
George Bush comes in.
Yeah, George Bush came in.
We were listening to the radio in driver's ed, when it got broadcast, whenever they cut into, the 70s music or whatever we were listening to. So, and then we turned the TVs on and watched.
Did you know it was a big deal at the first plane?
I don't know I don't remember the first thing we might have heard was that there were 2 planes. Because I do remember the coach who was like the driving instructor being like, I bet it said Osama bin Laden. I swear to God he said that. Although, to be fair, he's like the only terrorist whose name you know, right?
Yeah, I didn't know his name before 9/11. Maybe you did.
He did. I guess he was, the Al Qaeda guy. I'm sure he watched Fox News. They were probably
a boat or something during Clinton's term.
Wow, they big step up from a boat to World Trade Center.
It is a big ship. And he didn't sink it. He just did a lot of damage.
How do you get that building 7 though? What is it like? So when you're calling your parents at 2 a.m, is this something you've done your entire adult life? Like
did
regularly?
You say 2 a.m, or did we add that?
I added that. You said middle of the night. And so.
Yeah, it's usually their middle of the night, so like late. But pretty much since I moved out. Yeah, I love my parents. They're awesome.
That's great.
I got mental illness.
That's okay.
That's a good one to have, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I care too much. I'm overly concerned for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's a good, but also bad. I've gotten a lot chiller as an adult man. I was like very just regimented in like everything and trying to teach people stuff, like getting my dad books to read so he didn't have to stress as much. Because I could just see his like problems and I'd be like, well, those are easy to solve. Let me solve them for you. Obviously, I'm just a fucking ignorant child.
Yeah.
But you know.
Give him your reading list, and now he's learning about Hermes and Thoth.
And he's like, who the fuck are these people?
He's like, son, I love you, but this is not helpful.
I am the
I love
golden
you.
hand.
Yeah.
What does your father do? Does he still work?
He does still work. He's a farrier. He puts,
They clean hooves, right? Is that
yeah, he
right?
puts shoes on horses' feet and stuff. Yep.
Oh, I watch that on YouTube sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
like when they release those abscesses. It's really, really cool.
squirts. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
It
stinks.
I kind of don't
Thanks.
get it sometimes. I'm like, so horses aren't supposed to have hooves? You're just going to cut all that out, or like what? Why are hooves so poorly designed that they've got holes in the middle of them, or like pockets that aren't supposed to be there?
It's mainly because wild horses, they have so much room to run. They shorn their own feet. But since most horses are in a stable, or they're very controlled in their movement, they can't wear their own feet down, so they'll grow.
Well,
and they grow infinitely. Yeah.
It's probably part of the shoeing process. I even potentially, creating an abscess. I always thought, and I've never seen it. Maybe Zach can find a picture of like wild Mustangs' hooves, because I think I read that they're like really splayed out and just overgrown.
They're real wide, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times the abscesses are just like they'll step on something, get like a rock wedged in like a spot because the hooves are shorn down, like what Kyle's saying, and then it's just in a weak spot, and then it slowly gets, they're 1,000-pound animal running 30 miles an hour, so it just kind of gets smashed up into their frog, and sometimes a nail or something like that.
I wonder if they're real sensitive to the length of their hoof. Like, man, one of my legs is effectively a quarter inch shorter than the others because this goddamn farrier cut off too much hoof.
Yes. My dad is like that. One of his specialties is like conformation. So horses, he can tell based on their gait. Like some hooves he'll leave longer than others to change their gait to be more efficient. So like he's a lot more, because he used to trim mainly racehorses in Northern Virginia. Like that was kind of his thing. So
I was just going to say, without doxing him, like where in the country is he?
He's in Central Texas with me. He's actually outside at my house. He watched the dog attack the cow.
But they have him travel all over to handle horses in Virginia and such.
Not so much anymore, but back a couple of years ago when he was a lot more involved in it. He's trying to retire because it's a very exhausting job, and he'd rather just do whatever he wants than that. So I was like, I'll pay you to just do whatever you want.
Yeah, just work out.
Just get shredded.
Just do pull-ups.
Good for him.
Yep.
That's funny. You have like a remarkably fit dad, and you're still like, you alive?
Yeah, exactly. He's just digging a hole for like 3 hours outside, and I'm like over there looking at him, making sure he's upright, and he could outrun me, and there's no way I'm even close to being as physically fit as he is.
Damn. You got it. I mean, you got the genes for it though. You can get yoked.
Yeah.
You just got to start eating more than ginger.
I know, that's my big deal is I can't eat much.
No appetite.
Just a week. Yeah, I wouldn't say no appetite necessarily, but I don't like to eat I don't like to be full really. Cause I have like, I guess I have what's called OCD of thought. Sometimes I'll have like a thought and then I just can't stop thinking that thought. And sometimes that thought is when I eat, I'm like, oh, I'm going to throw up. So then I just start thinking that a lot. I think it's called an eating disorder, to be honest, but I don't know. And I'm much better than I always have been. And I feel like I'm the heaviest I've ever been. I weigh 159 pounds right now, which is pretty awesome. So
that's good.
What other thoughts do you have that you can't shake?
I used to think that I was going to kill myself a lot, or never any. Yes. Like I was going to kill myself, or like when I would be driving, I'm like, I'm just going to drive off the road right now. And then I'd be like,
so you mean delete yourself?
Yes, exactly. Delete myself. Yeah.
Everyone on the road has thought like, I've never thought like I should do that. And I've thought like I could change. Bill Burr has a bit about that where he's like just thinking like you could change, you could be on the news. You could like,
yeah, it's so weird.
Why were you like, was something wrong, or it was just a thought that you couldn't shake?
I I don't know. I think there's always been something very wrong with me, to be honest. But yeah, it's just like a lot of things that I feel like are bad and I shouldn't think about. I think about them a lot. Not as much now, fortunately. And it rarely ever has to do with like killing people.
Yeah.
All right.
When I was an accountant, I used to sort of do this like cost benefit of different injuries. Like if I broke a leg,
Oh yeah.
I don't think I'd miss any work at all. But if I broke an arm,
yeah, dude.
I bet I get like 6 weeks off. That's how much I hated my job.
Man, I can't remember what I was watching. The guy wants painkillers. Oh, it's House. I remember there's an episode of House where he's trying to hurt himself in such a way that they'll actually prescribe him painkillers at a clinic somewhere. And I think he breaks a bone or something, and they're trying to give him Tylenol. He's losing his fucking mind.
I will say that painkillers. It's one of the reasons I think I don't like kind of subconsciously like to drink or anything like that or do anything kind of crazy because I feel like I would just like go into it balls deep, just get crazy with it.
Did you get this
real good at it?
Like these thoughts as a kid, invasive thoughts?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah, I had I wouldn't say a psychotic break or maybe a nervous breakdown would be a good description. When I was like 15 years old, had a bit of a existential crisis, if you will, and I feel like pretty much since then,
What was the nature of it?
Like, what was the impetus?
I was reading a lot of books, and I just started to get incredibly obsessed with like nihilism and just thinking that stuff didn't matter, and like wondering what motivated people. And I just felt like there was no motivation. And then one day while driving, I had a horrible panic attack, and I didn't know what it was, so I associated it with a lot of different things. So it's like basically from that point on, I couldn't go into a vehicle without having a panic attack or think certain thoughts without immediately going into like a full-on panic attack. And then that just like led into me, becoming, because of the physical stress of that, being very depressed and like dissociating for a long time and trying to read books. And then combining that with like negative ideology and negative philosophy just caused a really bad sort of negative.
That's a rough time.
Yeah.
I was also get to the other side.
I don't know, to be honest. I think just like I wasn't like scared really or anything, or I think it's just the whole time I was always trying to better everything that I was doing, and I was like, I just like there's no reason for me to not do the things that I need to do, right? Like there was a time when I first started YouTube where I would play these stupid games. I would literally have to take a cold shower to be able to form thoughts where I could like speak and like direct my energy for an extended period of time without just feeling like, oh God, I'm just panicking all the time. I would take a cold shower specifically so I could think for like a couple hours. So I really don't know how I got out to the other side, but I feel great now. I feel very good and I feel stable and have for a long time. I've been through therapy and all that stuff. And I think really what it comes down to is like feelings. So like feeling like you don't really have control over something. That's like how I always feel, basically. That's like my innate sense. That's my innate feeling that I feel. And I think having like a lack of faith or confidence in myself is like the root of all that stuff. And since I've started to actively have faith in myself and like choose to feel a sense of faith, not necessarily in like a deity or a god or anything like that, but feel like, oh, this will work out. I've never felt like that before. And when I started to actively do that, I think I started to feel better. And like I could actually control my mind a little bit.
When you went to therapy, did you stick with the first therapist you saw, or did you bounce around until you found one that you thought was a perfect fit?
First one.
Is that how you do it again if you were a therapist?
I feel like that guy was really cool because he had a lot of respect. Like I came very prepared. So like I had read a lot of books and already was trying to learn like cognitive behavioral therapy and like all this stuff to help myself. And I was just like, how do I do this stuff? Like I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to be, like you're the guy who is supposed to help me. And he just gave me like a really specific regiment that I could actively follow, and it helped almost instantaneously. So he gave me.
What does the regiment look like? I'm not following.
So the regiment, first off, I told him that I wouldn't take drugs because I feel like that would sort of the logic for me there, which I don't think this is a good healthy thing to feel, but I feel like if I were to take SSRIs or something to help with depression or like anxiety or uncontrollable thoughts, then I would have lost, which is not a healthy mindset by any means. But it is something that I would have eventually conceded to, but it helped enough to where I never had to worry about that again. So what he prescribed was, or he didn't really prescribe it, but he suggested that I journal very consistently and try to make note of my thoughts, more so like whenever I would have any kind of thought, to just write it down so it's real. So I realize things that I'm thinking instead of just like having this crazy avalanche of just shit that's always going on. And mainly to be able to reflect on things. So like whenever I'm doing something positive, having those positive things be able to actually stick out instead of working against myself. That was the main thing. He called it ants, which there's a book about that. It's like automatic negative thoughts. You just, even if your life is 60% good, 40% bad, they're relative or subjective, you're going to focus on the 40% bad. And when you're in a bad spot, you're going to focus on the 40% bad 100% of the time. So, and obviously I knew that, I'm just a fucking regular ass white dude with parents who are awesome. And like, I have all this stuff and like, I'm not like rich or anything like that, but I have no reason to feel this way. So I knew that if I applied this stuff, I could eventually reason, and being able to reason started with being able to control my thoughts by getting them out of my head.
Doesn't that's
what he prescribed.
I can relate to the success yet not fully happy sometimes. And it sounds like you do what I do sometimes, which is completely invalidate unhappy vibes. It's like, oh man, this fucking sucks. Who are you to complain? You have a heated day, you fuck shit. Like, and now you're not happy. How many people would want to wake up today and not go to work? Your daily fucking day, you asshole. And it just there's a little hint at my inner dialogue.
Yeah.
Like a perspective shift. And by the way, if someone is in a crisis and they feel bad and they're depressed, it's not a good thing to approach them with. I've learned. It's like, hey, there's fucking people dying and starving everywhere. They're like, oh, I know. It's like, that's not it works really well on me and obviously you, but the perspective shift is a super powerful tool.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that focus on the negative thing, I used to do that. I'm much better now, but there was a time, say my YouTube comments were 95% positive. Well, I'm deaf to those, right? The 5% that told me what I did wrong.
Sycophants.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your word.
Sycophants.
Sycophants. Yeah, no, you're right. And then the 5% that had something negative to say, those
liars.
Ones that I'm like, they're truth tellers. They're the ones who see me for who I am.
Sycophants, liars.
It's like the Japanese, the hot dog guy. Like, he's probably like a lot of what he's shitting after those competitions. It's probably like damn near fully formed hot dogs because he's barely taking bites. His body can't digest all of that in a day. So it's the same principle.
No, but yeah.
Kobayashi's theorem, they call that.
Sorry, I guess we didn't cover that. Sorry, I'm guessing that we didn't cover that.
Too.
We
that's our bad.
I don't take any of the blame. I was mostly apologizing for them because they're sober. Like they don't have an excuse. Like I paid my bills today. Like my checkbook's out right over here. Like I'm this high and I managed.
If that's true, show us your bank account number.
Show us your checkbook.
I was so ready to read. Yeah. It's real fucking high pretty much the all day since I've been here. I've been having a great time. Like Taylor said, I think they underestimated like how little I want to do. But I am having a fantastic time.
So who's there still right now? Like the shift has happened, the changing of the guard. So
Fish and Dirty are here. Dirty is a new arrival. As soon as he got here, he did 100 milligrams of edibles. He just ate an entire jar of gummies and went to a scary place. And
attempt to put a number on that because it helps me. How many milligrams are milligrams
he took 10 milligram gummies, so 100 milligrams. And for that little fellow, that's a hell of a dose.
Oh, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, but would you say that like hits and edibles work against your body weight in the same way alcohol does?
I think tolerance probably plays a bigger role in it than anything else because like a skinny guy with like a decent tolerance it doesn't matter how big the guy with no tolerance is. Like there's just going to be a big tolerance is a big deal.
Yeah.
Which is why like every time I take a puff of this thing, I just go to another goddamn realm. It's ridiculous. These things are so cool. I didn't realize that they were this good.
It's just a dab pen. Yeah.
It's just a dab pen. Yeah. It's just it's
no more burning your hand on the ceramic.
No, yeah, I mean it's just like concentrate, and the only problem is like sometimes I'll forget what I'm doing, and I'll just keep puffing it like it's my like it's my nicotine vape. You know, like you like zone out, like sort of like watching movies or watching TV, and then I'm like, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? What have I done to myself? Oh God, I can tell it moved. Like you can like tell how much
you're getting like vibrations in your vision. You're so high.
I was so high on like night number 2, I think. I think night number 2 is when like they started getting out pre-rolled joints. Like these really fancy, expensive joints that have already been made for Woody's benefit, and they like sprinkle magical powders and goo and all sorts of stuff on them to make them extra strong. Like various kinds of concentrate.
I figured it out eventually.
Yeah, and so they're a little more. They're kind of a luxury item. They're a little more expensive than what the ingredients in them.
Can you say what they were called again?
It's just a pre-rolled joint, but
okay.
There's a lot of different kinds. But it's just like I said, sprinkled with keef and oil and all sorts of nonsense. But we smoked that thing, like passing it around. And when we came in and like started watching movies, I was just sitting there like. I wasn't trembling, but
you felt like you were.
I felt like I was vibrating. Like I felt like I was vibrating. I was in another fucking realm. And I think we were also watching Mandy, so that was pretty trippy already.
And when you're like, tell me if this is your experience with it, because you know those movies where like it'll be like a grandpa talking, like explaining a picture book to his grandson, and then there's the transition from the picture book to the live action movie where it's like the pages like flip.
Yep.
That's like being in that flip, like that is what it's like for me when I know I'm way too fucking high. Like you look around, it's like things aren't in the right, like you're dropping frames in real life, and that's horrible. I was talking to a friend recently where I'm like, said the same thing I was saying to you, where like when I can tell that delayed reaction when I'm too stoned is when I'm like, I hate this. Please sober up soon. I hope I'm not on the way up. Just get me back down to regular high. And I talked to a buddy of mine. He's like, oh, that's the best. Yeah, when you've just like totally lost control. And I'm like, and I'm like, man, that's what a horrifying way to do it.